Let's maybe kick off this discussion by just setting the context of this call. So I just want to quickly share a story which I feel could be relevant for this discussion. So I was working for a company in Singapore, and obviously the thing with me is that I always try to look for ways I can optimize and things like that. So the problem was that this website where there were like really nice charts, but then clients were actually not checking the website. They were checking their email. So now how do we get those charts into their inbox? And the solution was obviously it can be screenshotted because you cannot, use the same JavaScript code in an email ecosystem. It's not possible. So the idea clicked that, hey, why don't I build a service out of it? And basically it's an API which you can set up charts beforehand, and you just have to give it user data and it will create like screenshots which you can then embed in your Slack bot messages or in your emails, things like that. Now, on paper, it looks like a really great idea. Like I spent 3 months working on that, building a prototype. But sadly, I haven't, gone on to renew that domain, which was named ChartKitty. I really like that name, but that's how it wound up. So in order to address that, I wanted to share some thoughts about this particular problem, that maybe we as developers, we have an inclination to build products, but then somehow we are not able to translate them into actual customers, things like that. Yeah, thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Bilal, for doing this. So maybe we can just start off with an intro. Like, what are you guys up to? What have you been like? What's the journey been like? So Bilal, you would want to start off?
Sure. So yeah, hi, I'm Bilal, and I've been working full time now on my own product called flowboardpro.com. Though now because of the pandemic, the whole market has been quite disturbed. So right these days I'm doing some other experiments which I have been thinking of. So yeah, I have been doing side projects as long as I can remember. I think I have been doing side projects and trying to earn living from my side projects since 2010. And every idea, and to give you some idea, every idea on paper looks amazing. And every domain you register, you will definitely fall in love with that. So you're not alone, Abhishek. I think that for every domain I've registered, if I put that money in my saving accounts, I would have made a good amount of money. But yeah, I've been doing this for a very long time. This is my second time which I went completely full time, leaving my job. So I tried it before in 2014 or 13. But at that point of time, I was very naive. I picked up a very naive and optimistic idea, which did not work. So yeah, that's me. I have a lot of failures under my belt.
Aditya, how about
Hey,
you, man? You have an interesting journey as well.
sure. I've been working for almost 10 years now, all of them in some way or the other with some tech startups. I think some of the highlights of the stuff that I've done for 4 years in 2015, I was founder and CEO at a local services marketplace. We raised like $5 million. I grew the team to around 250. It was called Local. Unfortunately, didn't really have a happy ending, but learned a lot. It was quite fun. After that, I was building products at an HR tech startup called Belong, where I built a bunch of technologies for them. I have done product marketing. I have been a recruiter for 1.5 years. I recently learned how to code, and with my co-founder, Kit, who introduced me to Remote Intern actually, I have been building Kapi, which is an employee feedback tool for remote teams. It's a Slack app that helps you get feedback from your remote team. Yeah, I've been on it full time for 6 months. As of now, it's pretty early days for us. We have around 30 trial customers, and just last week, two of them converted after the beta. So we've thankfully started seeing some conversions now. We're doing around $40 of MRR right now.
Nice, nice.
Mm.
So guys, maybe what we can maybe kick off this discussion is maybe talking about the idea of discussing some of the pitfalls that one can fall into. And just to maybe set the scope of this discussion, like we are right now just focusing only on the stage where you have to find and, how do you find and validate ideas. So that's so that we can go deeper into that. So regarding that particular stage, what do you think, are some of the pitfalls that are very common in your circle or in your within personally as well? Yeah.
Sure. I think maybe with some specific questions coming from the audience, the answers can become specific. But I think a few of the pitfalls that I have gone through would be, and I was going through all my notes, just like I didn't have too much time to think about the session, but I went through some of my notes before, and I realized that it's very, if you learn how to code, it's really powerful. So you jump to things that look cute and really funky, and you feel that, oh wow, this is a really cool way to do this. I think we should, instead of coming from product first, a lot of us say that we do product first thinking. I think that's actually wrong. If you really want to make money, you got to think market first. What you have to think is, and that's the only thing, by the way, the VCs have got it right. They think market first. They know whether there is a market for this or not. So I think a very nice filter that I have seen work for me recently and for other people is that, do people take out money from their wallet for this problem today or not? Are they searching for these solutions or not, right? So just before doing Copy, as my first side project after learning coding, I had built something called TimeWise, which was a calendar analytics tool. So you just log in with your Google Calendar, it will show you how many meetings you had, focus time, how many one-on-ones you did, etc. It actually went decently well. We got around 500 users, but nobody paid for it. And I realized that this is not something that people are searching for a solution. So I think that's a really important thing. Don't even think of technologies and products and all of those things. Just think of markets first. And ideally, if you're an indie hacker or if you're in like a small team, it'll be great if it matches with your current interests. So one thing that worked for me in Copy was that I have become one of the few people who actually likes HR. I like people function and all of those things. It's just, in hindsight, the dots connected for Copy. Right. Of course, I don't know whether it will still be successful. We are still at $40 of MRR. But there is a pull from the market, like we can feel it happening. And on top of it, at the end of it, we got lucky with the whole remote thing. So of course, luck is involved. You stumble onto solutions. But I think a good way is to remove the kachara that comes in your mind by keeping a few frameworks. And that one has worked for me.
Right. So interestingly, I've been reading a lot of people who come in and come. So I've been reading a lot in terms of this indie hackers ideas and all the maker community, and then there are like people who write blog posts. For example, Aditya, he came from a different background apart from coding, and then came in and knew what he wanted to do, and took the coding as a piece of tool which will help him to deliver something. I think we as a programmer, I come from a programmer first mindset. We fantasize about the ideas a lot, and we believe, and I was growing up, when I was becoming more of a programmer, I have heard this quote multiple times that, hey, Mark Zuckerberg, he built entire Facebook and then it eventually blew up, and then this Instagram guy, he started creating this thing, though he was not a programmer. But we believe so much in our tools that we forget that there is a customer which we have to acknowledge a lot. And I think that was a very center of my problem, where before I realized that this is a problem, I was easily get distracted because I knew, okay, this is something I built now. What is something I have to? So I used to keep jumping from side project to side project because I can, right? As a programmer, I can pick up any technology and I will make something out of it. That whole option of choices made me very slow, made me less focused, made me think that, okay, whatever I'm working is not good enough. And that is where I think one of the challenges, as identifying a problem instead of creating a solution before identifying a problem, was a challenge for me. And at one point I decided I will not build something unless someone else tells me that they need it. Before 2017, I was like that, let's build this, let's build that. But after 2017, I actually told people who came to me for solution that why don't you try Excel? Why don't you try Zoho Book, for example, for this accounting thing? Why do you want me to build? I am not gonna build. Even today, when my customers comes to me and say Flowboard mein this feature is missing, I was like, okay. So my customer came for this is the example I'm sharing, and we need ability to track to-dos in Flowboard. I said, hey, go to Todoist, install their extension and start tracking your to-dos there. It allows you to track to-dos on any website. I am not gonna build this because, and trust me, to-dos is something which I'm trained to build in my sleep, but I'm not gonna build it because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I think that kind of mentality is something I spent a lot of time which was wasted, which I could have been if I could have got a guidance in them this would have helped me a lot.
Yeah. No, makes sense. I think saying no, it's very cliched, but saying no is very difficult. But once you learn that habit, I think it's very powerful, like in features. And I think also in ideas, like one thing I was discussing with someone recently, and that person called me to say, hey, what startup should I do? I think what at the end of it, we ended up concluding is that it's actually easier to say that I won't do this. So it makes your life a little easy. So for example, if you can say that, like I said recently that, yeah, I'm not going to do a B2C marketplace because that requires VC money. You have to change people's perception, grow fast, etc. So if you can say कि मेरे को ये नहीं करना है, right? If you can say that I won't get into real estate industry or I won't, so that also otherwise your ideas will keep jumping. So I think saying no in that framework of yours, that how do I make a decision? If you can say this is always out, that will also help.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree. Like when you eliminate all the things you don't want to do, what remains is things which where your interest is lies, where you want, where it gets excited for you, and then some problem might emerge. So yeah, that is spot on. So I think another thing which worked for me is I started hanging out with a crowd which couldn't which couldn't solve their problems by themselves. So for example, I used to hang out a lot with programmers, and all the people I met are like, okay, if we have this problem, I can write a Ruby script which will solve this for me. And I'm like, cool, yeah. But then when I started hanging out with people who actually cannot do, that's where I realized, okay, these people have problems, and let's start listening to them and understand where the pattern is. It's quite important to actually go out of your circle, the comfort zone, and try to talk to people. And these people can be in a product managers meeting, product managers meetups, or just a random WhatsApp group which is related to like people who who are looking for some things and keep testing out these ideas. Writing content can be a very good way to figure out to attract new kind of people towards you. So yeah, that has been very helpful for me.
To answer some of these questions, Abhishek, is it okay
Yeah.
if I just answer some of these questions?
Which ones? As in
And one
the
is
chat.
Rahul. Yeah, in the chat. So Rahul, that the 7840 is also includes the consulting work that we have done for our clients. The first two things that we actually did were consulting projects. I did two for around 9 lakhs. That got me going and gave me some runway. I haven't. These clients were also given software, but I have not included that in the MRR because it's not true MRR. I'm just including the $40, which is true software sales, where someone
Right.
has come in and bought it as MRR. Actually, it makes sense. I'll add that in the open page. Vamsi, what did you mean by what platforms you can introduce a new product?
I
Can
think
they?
Vamsi, I think that's a question which maybe we can take that up in the Slack group. I think it doesn't make sense in like how we have structured this. So Vamsi,
Sure.
feel free to post it in the Slack group.
Sorry, I also just realized that the others
Hmm.
are on mute.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, nothing. Tell me.
Yeah.
So,
So I think
who's talking?
sorry.
Abhishek, yeah, you go. I'll.
Cool. So to dig deeper, as in one of the common like problems that I noted was talking to customers. Like as developers, I think we feel that like urge to build and not necessarily get feedback. Like getting feedback is a little difficult for us. Like we want quick feedback. We want, this is how scripts work. This is how we function. So in that sense, can we dig deeper into that particular area? And are there any frameworks that you have found helpful? Any books that you have found helpful in this regard? Like figuring out whether what you're solving is actually of value. Is it actually painful? Who wants to maybe go first? Bilal?
Sure. So I think as a programmer, and I'm speaking on behalf of programmers because I've been one for a very long time and I'm still, but I had to, it's quite difficult to change your mindset in terms of, I'll not start coding, I'll talk to people. It's very difficult because as a programmers, we are spoiled in terms of thinking, okay, if I write now and do refresh, it appears in front of me. There is very little patience is required. But for getting feedback from customers, you need to have really huge, a long patience. It's a patience game, and you have to go through a lot of feedback cycles. There's a lot of time customers don't even know they are sharing the wrong feedback with you, and you have to stand behind them and see how they're using your product or some other product to understand, oh, this is actually a problem which they never thought of highlighting. So that requires patience. So have started, I started noticing this, that everything you need before we come to customers, talking to customers, is building patience. You have to be very patient. It will not be that you talk to one customer and you schedule a call, potential customer, and they will be able to give you everything you need to build your idea in one go. There will be multiple rounds, there will be multiple visits, there will be multiple scenarios which you have to understand. Coming to talking to customers, I think it is very important to figure out, to start working on this skill of, hey, I'll just go ahead and talk about my ideas to people. Forget about customers. Don't think them as if they will be a customer or not, but start talking about the idea or the problem. If you notice a problem which you feel is solvable with your code, so just start talking about them. Talk to random people, talk to people you meet in meetups, schedule a call with any Twitter follower you have, or yeah, definitely work in public. I would refrain from saying work in public because work requires you to actually believe that you are solving something. Before that, if you have to find what to solve, you join Telegram groups, you join like Slack groups and tell people that, hey, this is an outline of my idea I want to solve. Would you be interested in, would anyone think that they will be able to share an experience of that? And even forget about the idea part. Just ask people how they're solving this problem. I think this is also a fundamental, comes from the Mom Test book, which says that just talk about the problems which you discovered with other people, then how they are solving this problem. Is it actually a problem or not? And this whole cycle might take a month or two, depending on your skills. But go through this cycle before writing the first line of code, before you think that you understand this problem very well.
Yeah, I think from my side, the most important, the biggest actionable insight I can give people is already being discussed, and I think someone just gave the link, is read that book. It'll change your life. It changed my life. I was not good at it. It's called the Mom Test. It's basically, and I think the TLDR of that book is actually, in hindsight, is so freaking simple, right? It says that when you talk to people, try to talk about their past. Like asking someone, hey, will you pay for this product? Hey, is this a good idea? Is a really bad question, right? People give you biased answers. They like you and they want to please you. So they give you those biased answers. What you have to ask them is, hey, when was the last time you faced this problem? And if you faced this problem, did you try to solve it? And how did you go ahead and solve it, right? If you see that they had a problem, but they weren't actually solving it, that's still a bad problem because they don't care enough about the problem. So only and only if you find that, look, people are actually having that problem, they got that problem, they found the problem, they tried to solve it, only then I think that's very good validation. And then you can deep dive into your idea on how to solve it and their feedback on it. So I think that's the most important thing when talking to customers. And also one thing I realize is, I think maybe Bilal also said this, is that less formal it is, these conversations, the better, right? You don't have to reach out to someone and set up an interview and stuff like. Maybe the lockdown will force you to do it if you do it right now, but it's better if you just, like, people love bitching about their problems. Like, people love talking about their problems. So just meet them and ask them. And the lesser you talk and the more you listen, that will actually be better. Some of these points like really help. One thing that I wanted to share, while I was talking, I opened some of the notes that I had. I'm going to share my screen. So this is also public, by the way, it's completely open. So what I used to do, and I think someone on the internet already used to do this, and I think that Peter Level's guy only. So basically what I used to do was, for almost a year, whatever used to come to my mind, I used to put in these places. Whatever used to keep coming in my mind, I used to, move them one level down. Whatever was really promising and used to really excite me, I used to put them in this bucket. And once I got into this bucket, I used to get into, okay, let's find out who will be the buyer, who might be facing this problem. And one more thing that I would recommend to everyone, it's a very marketing thing, is, so there's something called the Google AdWords keyword tool. What that gives you is who are the number of people that are searching for this problem, and how many are they searching for, this would be the result of that. So that gives you a very good idea that, okay, if I want to build 360-degree performance review software versus performance management software, how much more it's a 100x better chance of succeeding, because 100x people are looking for it. And honestly, what happens is that even if the competition is high, right, it's actually a very good thing, because the validation is done. You just have to be 1% better than others. So most of the times we actually remove ideas because thinking, yaar, ye to already somebody's doing it. But everything that you can possibly think of on the internet, somebody is doing it. Right? Just because there are 10 Punjabi restaurants doesn't mean that you can't open one Punjabi restaurant and make shitloads of money if you are passionate about it. Other also do, I think this is where we made our decision actually. And the reason I want to show was, this is literally what our workflow was. So I knew that I'm going to do in one of these places. Travel was there because my wife was doing something in this. Thank God I did not touch this in this episode. It would have been a really bad idea. Scheduling was interesting because I had built a side project, calendar analytics. So it was just the next step to that. And then one more thing you can do is trends, right? So if you can ride a wave, it makes your life really easy. So if, for example, let's say this is, I think the green one is scheduling. If you can write the scheduling app wave, that will make your life way easier. Right? Of course, this trend is not very good right now because this green one is eating up everything. But if I zoom down into just these 4 ones, which are in HR space, like we saw that, okay, employee feedback is trending up, and especially in remote, that will just make more sense. That's how, from after removing and then combining them with what is interesting to us, and then just going through this journey and then talking to a few people, we finally ended up in that place to where we are right now, which is Kapi. I also had noted down a few fantastic links, which I think I'll send at the end of the session. People will get distracted. But honestly, guys, actually, it's all guys. This was literally my journey. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to just show it to you actually how it went through. And this was like a 2-month effort and at that time I was not doing it full time. I was chilling and trying to figure out about life. So this can be your 2-month journey as you do your full-time job and try to figure out the next step.
No, thanks, Aditya.
I would like to highlight one thing is that what Aditya just showed, that the analysis he did before getting into picking up what the right idea would be or what the right problem to solve would be, is most of our programmers, we never do that. Till 2017, 18, I never understood how to do these kind of things. There's literally very few resources available, or probably I'm not good at finding these resources. But after that, when I learned that you could put numbers to figure out what is gonna work and what is not gonna work, that literally changed a lot of things in my perspective. And that understanding how to use these tools, understanding how to copy the data from this and put it in an Excel and then play around with that data to come up with more insights is very unnatural to us. I think it's not very intuitive for a programmer. That is one thing. The other thing is what you talked about is that if there's 10 Punjabi restaurants, you can open another Punjabi restaurant. That is totally fine. I think in the offline world, it's very expected way of behavior that I see in a locality where there's a lot of shops of clothes. It's highly likely that another shop will open, will be offering the similar types of clothes. But
Right.
in tech, we try to get into this mindset that I have to do something very unique which has not been done till date, and which increases the pressure tremendously and also puts you in a position where your all the odds are against you. And then Justin Jackson, I'll share the link of his thing as well, that he wrote that it's very easy if you have an ice cream shop in a hot play area.
Yeah.
If you have an ice cream shop, if you open another ice cream shop, you will definitely get customers. But and you there are multiple there can be lot of ice cream shops which can exist in that play area. So pick up those markets compared to something which people have not heard about. Changing people's habit is extremely difficult. Very few products can it has that kind of luck and also the resources to change people's habit. So don't try to pick up a problem which might someone with in San Francisco with a lot of VC money can solve it, and I'm not denying that fact. But someone with our set of resources, and if you're not thinking of putting yourself in that kind of a league, then it would be very hard to solve.
I think there are many examples of this, like just Checkworks versus this company Salesforce. Like Salesforce is obviously the number one player in the CRM market, but Zoho went and took a bit out of that market. Then Freshworks went ahead and did the same. I feel that's something which is very counterintuitive because generally when you're bootstrapping, you want to make sure that you're targeting a market which can have space. But again, this is a very important thing to note. Like, how do you make sure that it's actually a market where other people have already went ahead and made sure that validated that idea. So it's the same thing with SurveyMonkey. I think they are like an Indian SaaS company, and they are maybe competing against players like Typeform. But I'm sure it's working out well for them and their employees, and I think that's a great insight.
Right. Also,
So
these are very large SaaS products which you gave examples of. These are very large
okay,
SaaS products. I would also say that you don't have to focus on a very large market initially. Even if
right,
you can actually build a very good business with 100K ARR as well, which is a good decent amount of money in Indian rupees. It's not necessarily that the first SaaS has to be $1 million a year or
hmm,
like a $2 million a year. Because we hear these kind of very large numbers so often, it has become subconsciously we have lost value for 1 million compared to 100 million. But 1
right,
million, if in Indian rupees, is a huge money. Similarly, like $1,000, which is a lot of money. It's a good amount of money to sustain yourself and then think for a next bigger problem, or sell this to someone who can take this off from your hand and move to your other idea. I know personally a couple of SaaS companies from India which they are not on the map at all. They are not on Twitter at all. Nobody have heard their names, but they make decent amount of money to support their lifestyle, to do all the things they want to do. And yeah, with not and doesn't have a fancy name, doesn't have a fancy VC behind it, or doesn't have a fancy open, let's say open page to show things. So yeah, so there are these things as well which you can consider.
Yeah, yeah. I think if your goal is to have a good lifestyle, have a lifestyle SaaS, which I love that term these days. All of these things that we are discussing and what Bilal was saying, I perfectly agree with. I can only think of very few examples in SaaS that actually created categories, and for that you needed investor money. And it makes sense. You have to do marketing to change that perception. I think HubSpot is one that changed, built a category. Whatfix is an Indian one that is actually creating a category of its own. That category itself didn't exist until now. Probably ChargeBee also in some ways or the other. But if you look at everything else, like it's all problems that have existed since the dawn of mankind, and those problems will never go. It's actually a very good thing. If you want to make good amount of money from your SaaS, just jump into the crowded water. Like the more crowded, the better.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got one more thought. I think what Bilal is doing with the CRM for a specific niche also is actually a very good example. So, for example, CRM for, let's say, construction company. CRM for there's an Indian guy on Twitter I stumbled onto recently. He runs a company called ZenMaid. It's a SaaS for just maids and cleaning companies. They're about to hit $1 million ARR. In 6 years, it's a slow success. But dude, $1 million ARR, man, for literally, technically, a piece of tool that does CRUD operations. That's what all CRMs do. But the customers don't care about it. Like, it just solves a
No, but it actually solves a problem, right? Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely true. And it actually, if you are actually solving the problem for that specific industry, you don't have to, need fancy tech. You don't have to like have all the jam stack in place to make a $1 million per year. And this is a very hard learning of mine. And I thought that I'm a self-taught programmer, and my journey began because I wanted to create things, but I got lost into the tools side of this tech. And I reached to a point where every technology meant, okay, the next technology I will have is another cutting edge technology. And if the next technology I'll learn is going to be another cutting edge technology. But then I realized this is a never ending game. And now these days, my product is built with the most boring technology anyone would pick at this point. And it works very well. My customers. So one of the Flowboard is been doing a huge data at this point. And to this date, I have not spent a single time optimizing Flowboard. I just, whenever there was once the Flowboard was slow, I just increased the size of DigitalOcean machine from $5 to $10. And I was like, okay, done. I'm not going to spend more time into fixing things or building things.
Cool. So I really the idea of having a Trello board for ideas, or maybe a notebook of sorts. But then how do I go about filling that up? Right? Is that something, do you think that's a problem, or that's not just wanted to get your quick thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think maybe I have become like that so I like documentation. I actually document everything. This is like literally my sales CRM. By the way, I was going through this, and the notes that I made with Abhishek are still here. He was one of the earliest people I talked to figure out, okay, how do remote companies work? But just like that product wala idea, I have another one for content marketing. So literally, if anything comes to my mind, or even if I have an interesting WhatsApp chat, I just note it down, and they literally start becoming my blog posts and all of those things. So I would recommend that don't overthink it. Oh, is this a great idea? Should it note it down? It can be as shitty as possible. Just note it down in your whatever format, and doesn't have to be some cool Trello board, etc. Just or just walk around with a notepad, something. I think once you get into the habit of searching for markets and searching for good business problems, I think you'll get into the flow. Like, you'll start understanding. As techies, all of us, I'm sure all of you more than me, because I'm a very fake techie, you always think about which technology, you're keeping track on things. Do the same for just markets and or maybe just your own personal problems. Actually, don't even think about markets first. Just think about, what did I find painful today? within a week or two, I can assure you there'll be at least 6, 7 ideas in there.
I think that's
Sorry, I don't know if
true.
that was useful, but
So, Bilal, anything that
Yeah. And I agree with what Aditya said. And yeah, you have to start capturing what you have in your mind in terms of not just idea capturing. When you have an idea, you capture it in a Trello board and then just leave it off. Don't leave it off like that. Just figure out if you can capture, if you can now make it into a more actionable thing where you can start talking to people who might be interested in hearing about those ideas, might be interested in or might be suffering from that problem if you can know from a company point of view. Start learning how to dig into these numbers, analytics, for example, Google AdWords, start learning that tools. If you have an idea, I'm sure there are tools available which can give you some numbers to put things in perspective. Will this idea work or not? So start picking up tools like this SEO related tools or stats related tools where you can predict the trends, you can understand the numbers in terms of these trends, and start putting those numbers in front of your ideas and see which one works and which one will work, which one will not. And time box it. I would say that you have to, if you want to do an idea, then figure out that okay, till August end, I will just do my research and figure out which idea is worthwhile, and then from August to December, I'll execute. So time box those things and then do justice to that. If you are always in ideas mode, if you are always in uncertainty mode, that which will work and which will not work, it's a never ending story. You will never reach to a point where you have full confidence that this will work. And that's the la la land, right? We all want to be there where
yeah,
everything is in our favor, every data is with us, and now we are winning. That's never happens. Everyone has to take a risk,
yeah,
and everyone has to
that's
take a
true.
leap of faith.
Cool. So maybe like that's a good segue to the next question that I had in mind. That is, if we are talking about taking a leap of faith, the idea when you think about validating the idea, the first framework that we know of is you should build an MVP, right? But I have learned from my own painful experience that might not be like there are so many steps which actually lead to an MVP. So could you guys talk a little bit more about that? What went into the whole process before you build the MVP for Copy and Flowboard? Bilal or Aditya, who won?
I can go.
Yeah.
Shit, sorry, I have one more. I have so many notes for all this. I'm loving it. Okay, here's my screen again. I think is Ankit on the call, my co-founder? No, I don't think he is. So this is what me and Ankit were discussing, I think around Feb, March. And this is what I was saying, right? This was our parameters. We want to bootstrap it. It must give recurring dollars. It must be in remote. People are searching for this today. So we did all of this stuff. By the way, one more actionable thing that you can do now, which really worked for me, is go to g2.com or go to Capterra in one of these software review sites and try to see the negative reviews for your competition. You'll be able to figure out what is the USP or the MVP that you should launch with. So,
Nice.
like all of these things, that's another signal, right? You will talk to customers, you'll realize what are their current problems that all the solutions are not solving for. Just choose one from there. So what we ended up choosing for Copy was really simple. Everyone was saying that nobody likes filling all those surveys, employee surveys that my HR team sends to me. So we said that we'll just send it on Slack because everyone who's remote loves Slack. And we'll just send it once a week instead of sending 60 questions every quarter. And that just became like our USP. And later we realized actually the latter is not even a USP, but we just went with it now, and now that's our thing. This 10% better in a niche, I think, is very important. For that MVP, you just have to be 10% better. After that, you can start competing on features, because in SaaS, sooner or later, you will lose deals based on features. But your MVP must have just one thing. Shit, my scribbles are bad. I don't think anyone will understand my writing. I think here is also where we tried to figure out, okay, what is the first thing we should do first? So what we tried to do was, this is my persona, right? I run a team of 6 people are unhappy. I want them to be on the same page. Then we try to think about how will they solve for this. And I think the ones in the red we removed, ones in the blue and green we thought about. And then we said, okay, let's choose one of these from the MVP. So technically for us, it could have been OKRs, by the way. So performance management and employee engagement means OKRs. You have to help employees and managers track each other's goals. 360-degree reviews, right? Like an employee should be able to get 360-degree feedback from everyone. But we just decided to keep it really simple, which is that, okay, we'll just start with this. The actual reality to all this is that, what is that term? Parkinson's law. Like the scope of the project expands based on how much time you give to it. So you just have to tell yourself that, dude, I don't have time for this. I can only work on the weekend, and I'll give it 4 weekends. That's all. You will automatically figure out the MVP by the way.
I agree with him. In my case, I've also learned that when you have an MVP, you also make sure that there are some commitments from your potential customers that they will give a fair try to this MVP. And then you try to play the catch-up game where you keep giving them access to your basic built MVP, and then they keep trying it out and saying, okay, this I would have this thing to be this one. Oh, when you said X, I understood Y. So when you put it in an MVP format, now I'm able to understand, okay, what that Y is. And no, we exactly want X, but we don't need Y. So there has to be, the MVP has to be some of your experience and your touch. At the same time, you have to make sure that there are a couple of folks who are trying it and giving you feedback. So it has to, both the point has to intersect at some point. What happens is, and I'm guilty of doing this, I think that an MVP is when I'm done with the research, I will go and build something and then give it to everyone and then they start using it. It doesn't happen that way. What happens is when you do research and then you convert it into an idea and a solution, in that same process, you have to make sure that a customer is involved from day one. If there is for example, in my case, Flowboard, I just created, I understood that talent management is a problem. I just created a talent registration form where they can just enter their talent's data. This was a simple CRUD, name, age, and all those things, and a profile picture. I created that and gave it to them. And then they couldn't do anything else with that thing. But what happened is, I got the data in the system. Now, whatever I build next, then I built a booking form. So they started using that as well. And then I built a calendar. So from when they started using, they had all the data in place. Like there was all the artists created, there was bookings created. Now the calendar was giving them very useful information. It was not a blank calendar which was launched and then they have to fill it in. So I usually build very small thing and give it to the customer and tell them that you put in data, and then I have to give them assurance also that you have to put in data and then you have to wait for some time to see that data, how that data makes sense, how I am converting that data into something sensible on the interface. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that doing this is gonna help. This also helps customer to stay invested in your product. They are also curious to see, oh, the data which we have input, what will be the outcome of that? Yeah.
That was pretty good. So I think we are nearing the hour mark. Any other thoughts that you guys had come in thinking about that you would want to discuss? Otherwise, we can take up some audience questions and then do a wrap up. Yeah.
Nothing from my side. Technically, I can go on and on, but nothing specific from my side right now.
Bilal, anything that you wanted to talk about in this session and we haven't, covered?
Yeah, I think one thing which I want everybody to take away from this thing is plan for long term. Plan from 10 years from now, plan for 10 years, at least 10 years from now, where you want to be. Even if having a vague idea is enough, but have that, then you will start picking up skills which is gonna take you there.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah, if I can learn coding,
Agree.
all of you guys can learn business, man. Like, it's damn easy. It's not that difficult, and you don't even need business. You just need a little bit of market research skills, and then just marketing,
Hmm.
because you can do it
Yeah.
over the internet. You don't need to get on calls and cold call people and stuff like that. You need to, but
Actually,
it's not going to be your biggest hurdle.
hmm. Yeah, I think the important takeaway for me is that like there is obviously the need at some point of time to actually make that product, convert that vision into reality. But the more that you can push back, like there's no golden rule as that, okay, this is the time you should. It's a lot of intuition. Like, how do you measure intuition? So what we are just suggesting is that maybe even before writing the first line of code, can you think about just pushing that a little bit farther before you have more clarity, whether it's through customer conversations or some way of research, that kind of a thing. I think we are still like, so take all of this advice with a lot of caveat, and that's what my suggestion would be. So looking at the questions that people have said, and I'm going to allow everyone to unmute themselves. So Ashwin, do you want to go ahead and throw your question? That's an interesting one about design.
Sure. So, like, I come from a programming background. I was just wondering. So, whenever I have an idea for a product or a software or whatever, my natural tendency is to focus on building a nice interface and polished experience, and try to keep it as bug free as possible, the whole 9 yards. And that inevitably ends up delaying my timeline, and the feedback process or whatever begins at a much later stage. And the cycle is a lot slower, because everything that I try to implement, or any feature that I try to introduce, it takes a while because I'm so obsessed with all sorts of gritty implementation details. So I was just wondering, in your experience with putting out MVPs out there, how much do you put focus on things like polish and bugs? What's your tolerance limit for all that?
I think
Go ahead, Bilal.
I think these days, what I do is I just pick up templates and start doing fill in the blanks. I have stopped spending a lot of time in terms of polishing and making things from scratch. I think it takes away a lot of time, and why should we do something when there is already an option available in the market which is ready made? Like even Tailwind CSS, what is being suggested, I would pick up refactor UI ka package they have and put it out there by just doing fill in the blanks, rather than coming up with my own template or own design.
But also, if you don't know Tailwind, don't pick it up.
Yeah,
That
that's true.
caveat is
That's true.
there. Yeah,
Right.
no, it's 100%. And I think the golden rule still stands. Parkinson's law. If you give it more time, you will put more things into the agenda. Right? You don't tell yourself, I don't have time, boss. This is the time I have. You will automatically say, chuck it. Okay, it's okay if this bug is there. It's okay if this polish is there. If it's not polished. And honestly, in my learning, you might get more customers because of some super cool user interface, but I don't think you will lose customers because of it. Let's put it that way. So in the MVP stage, your job is validation, right? That's not going to be achieved based on perfect code and perfect design. And you have to outsource everything that is not core to you. Like the only thing that we have built on Kapi that we are really proud of and we spend a lot of time is just that check-in system. Very smoothly, the check-ins go out to people. The rest of the stuff Slack takes care of for us. Like we haven't built a single form, nothing. The Slack app takes care of it. The marketing side is all Webflow. So just outsource everything that's not core. Give yourself very little time. Design matters, and if you're passionate about it, by the way, do it. Right? You shouldn't be doing boring things. So do it, but don't go crazy over it. You're not going to lose customers if you have bad design. If that was true, then Salesforce won't be I don't know how many billion, gazillion dollar company. The customer doesn't care about that, some pixel here and there.
Yeah, I think the customer only cares about if you're solving the problem which you promised. regardless of whatever, if it is a template or if it is your hand-rolled design, if you are using PHP in the backend or you're using Rust, it doesn't matter. If you are able to deliver that end goal, that end value for the customer is what they need.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Any other questions, guys?
I think there's just one more. How does one
Yeah.
research for competitors?
Yeah. Just,
My thoughts on that is use that keywords tool, right? Like I think the Google AdWords tool will give you some idea. Plus, go to G2. If you're doing SaaS, go to G2.com, go to Capterra, go to builtwith.com will also help. It basically lists down how sites are built with using what tech. Give you a very good idea, but honestly, don't go crazy over it because it will be very demoralizing. Because what you want to build has already been done, and you will feel that, oh no, why am I doing all this? So I would say 80% of your validation time should be with customers and 20% should be with competitive research. So don't go crazy on some competitors thinking, what will I do? How will I beat them one day? All that, I don't think ever works.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there was
guys,
one, which is,
yeah.
I think was for me, but I think that, yeah, that is just a tablet with a pencil.
Cool. So any other questions, guys? Or in the meanwhile, Aditya, you were saying that you had some links to share, or like any books that you felt
Right.
that were very useful in your journey. I think that could be like useful
mock
for the
test is
community
one.
to dig deep. Yeah.
I can just give you the links and you can share with people.
Yeah, that's cool as well.
Okay.
Bilal, any particular books that you have found to be like really useful? Anything
I
that
think
you would like to recommend?
so. So I'll recommend it in the Slack as well. But I found Personal MBA to be very good book in terms of figuring out how businesses work, and it's a very nice book to give you a crash course into what MBA is actually and what all the good parts of it.
Cool. I think that should be it, unless there are more questions. Guys, anything else that you wanted to talk about? You wanted to know? Obviously, this is just the start. We will keep this discussion going in the Makers channel as well. And my hope is that, like, I genuinely believe that remote working gives you a lot of freedom to explore the ideas of building a product as well. And but at the same time, I wanted to have this session so that people know that how to go about it. That's the natural step that a lot of people are going to take. And Aditya and Bilal, I hope that the work that you're doing, that kind of becomes like a lighthouse of sorts for people who might be willing to transition. I would say. I think this is like a long-term game that we're playing, so
Right,
it's going
right.
to be
Yeah,
an
I hope
interesting
so.
journey.
Yeah, I hope that too. And I have a personal belief that like how we have offline businesses where every city has their own good best restaurant, good hotel, or good marketplace, or good places to buy clothes. I think software will become reach to that point where Indian consumers are using some different SaaS products, the others, and everyone will start getting fair chance of like creating their own ideas.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. You can reach out to me anytime if you have any specific questions. Happy to help as much as I can.
Same.
Cool then.
Thanks, Abhishek, for organizing it.
No worries. I think I found a lot of value. So
Please read that
it's
book.
working.
You've not
Yeah,
read it.
yeah.
Since I've
On
been
test.
asking you to do it for this since December.
Dude.
Chalo. Okay.
Chalo.
So,
Take
Bye.
care.
bye.
Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Bye bye.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.